everyone, welcome to Bow-nanza. We love our puns here at So Over It, and it's time for a celebration of all things bows. Bows have been on our mind at the moment, potentially with things we're working on.
Yes, yeah, I guess they are just always on
our mind. So we thought we'd do a little deep dive into our patterns that feature bows. And then Rosie and I, being the slightly geeky-minded ones here, we went down into some research about bows in general.
Yes, yeah, we've gone into the history books. We enjoyed doing our other vlog so much, where we looked at like sewing in history.
We'll put a link below so you can watch it. That was really fun.
It was so much fun.
I think especially for you and I.
Just really enjoyed getting a bit geeky again.
Yeah.
So we're going to get a bit geeky with bows this time round.
But we're going to talk about patterns with bows first. And there's an offer as well. You can find lots of details about that below. And then we're going to dive into some history of bows. So if that's not for you, you can watch until we start talking about the boring stuff, which to us is really interesting. But I guess a very good place to start would be talking about what we're wearing today.
Yes. So both Alma and I have on our pussy bow blouse.
Versions of.
So the OG pussy bow blouse around here.
So I made a hack of the pussy bow blouse with the Roxy jumper sleeves. And this fabric has a little bit of stretch. It's not like a jersey, but it has a bit of stretch. So I thought those sleeves could work. And I did no modification. It is knitted. It's like chainmail also. It looks a bit like.
It's amazing.
I really love it, and it has the classic bow here. I think this is the higher one, so the pussy bow blouse has two versions.
Yeah, so you can sew it right down into the V.
Yes,
the bow, so
exactly.
You can have an open neck.
Yes, you could have like that version, but I love it. I've made many versions of the pussy bow blouse, and this is one of my many hacks. It's a very classic design, and I find it's really fun to play with the sleeves, play with the length. I've made a dress as well.
Oh yeah,
a maxi dress, really fun. But if you don't like to do your own hacking, what we have is the pussy bow blouse add-on pack, which is something you used to make that version.
Yeah, so the difference between the add-on pack and the original is mostly around the neckline. So this one goes right up to the top. You can see the blouse does as well. It's got a placket down the front.
Love it.
With buttons, or I put snaps on because they're so quick. And you've got a yoke here, and then the bottom part of the bodice is gathered into that yoke. It's just like such a nice, I love that little curve.
A bit more detail.
Yeah, just a bit more detail. It has that kind of higher neck that you quite often see in pussy bow blouses if you don't want the V.
Yeah, true. True. So this shows a little bit of skin. I mean, mine's see-through, so it shows a lot of skin, but I've got a vest underneath. But yes, so you have a bit of skin visible if you prefer a higher.
I quite like this.
I don't love it.
Yeah.
It feels very like you feel very well dressed.
Very proper. Yeah, but also you can show from our versions. Mine's sheer as well.
Yes, of course.
It's not quite a sheer.
Yeah.
I love how it looks over a vest.
Yes.
It's a different sort of like, it's fancy, but there's a bit more to it as well.
Yeah.
Which is really nice.
Totally.
And it can be like a bit party and a bit actually very formal.
Yes. Well, you've worn this with like your black overskirt.
Yeah.
Black trousers, black
all of my black
nails, and that looks really smart.
Really
you
smart.
could go have a meeting about world domination in it.
That's it. It's my go-to. Oh, I've got to go and speak to the bank vibe.
Yes, perfect. And this is my strictly pussy bow blouse. It sparkles, it shines. I don't know if you can see, but it's a fun one. But one of the reasons I love the pussy bow blouse is how you can make it in many different fabrics.
Yes.
You've got a cotton lawn one
that
I adore.
It's beautiful. It's so cute.
It's very different from what you're wearing now.
That's it.
We've definitely made like chiffon ones.
Chiffons, viscose, silk.
Oh, I really. Do you know what? If you made silk pussy bow blouse using some of the couture techniques from our latest stitch school class. Can you imagine? That would be something you cherish for the rest of your life, because, as we've noticed, pussy bow blouses aren't going anywhere.
They've been around since
a long time.
A long time. We'll go into
that later on. Yeah.
A long time.
But it's I feel it's a very timeless
Yeah.
style. And also the bow on the add-on version is slightly bigger. Yeah, so you can see like the tie, the difference. Teeny tiny, bigger. And I made a version putting organza in the bow, so it stands up really proud. So yeah, lots of customizations.
Lovely.
And she's one of our original
She is,
patterns,
yeah.
like,
She was one of the very first 3 that came. They all came out together, I believe, when Lisa first started Sew Over It. So she feels like a cornerstone of the company. Totally. Like her, Betty, and Ultimate Trousers.
Yes.
That's where we began.
And still going strong. All of those 3 patterns, which is incredible. It shows you how timeless they are.
Exactly that.
It's lovely. But enough about the Pussy Bow blouse. She's not the only bow in our family. Something else that we brought out last summer now, is it? Yeah. It was the Sophia dress, which is gorgeous. There's different versions, so if you don't love bows, there are versions that don't need to have a bow on it. Yeah. But our favourite version is the bow one, and so it's a summer sundress. Different options for the skirt and things like that, but the main difference is you can have buttons at the back or a big bow.
Enormous bow.
Which is so beautiful.
It's really nice. It's really helpful for sort of fitting.
Yes,
because you just tie the bow, you can cinch it in or have it looser. So it's practical.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's not just not just a like afterthought. The bow constructs the dress in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly that. And then we'll probably come on to more about that in bow history.
We're just teasing you. If you don't want to hear the facts, you'll still want to hear the facts.
Sorry, we're all going to learn today.
This is a learning vlog. But yes, Sophia, absolutely gorgeous. I've made one, but I've made a hack. I've hacked it into a top as well because I just love the bow details so much.
That's really, really cute. And it also, with Sophia, I definitely designed it with bras in mind.
Yes.
So it's
that was one of your main things. You were like, a summer dress, yes, sunny, and
and shows off some skin and has interesting details, but
you must be able to wear it with a bra.
So if you're thinking bow in the back, I'm never going to be able to wear that.
No. We even did a video of Rosie showing how to tie the bow sort of around the bra.
Yeah,
so
it's super great. Secure. It's so secure. Nothing is going anywhere.
It's great. Love the Sophia dress. And then another one from last year, which kind of came almost in tandem with Sophia, was the bow bag, which is just an adorable little accessory, and it features a bow. That again is part of how the thing works. So you hold the bag, it's a clutch bag, but you hold it through the bow, so the bow's nice and visible. Since we brought it out, there have been so many incredible versions that have popped up online, and people are getting really creative. So we thought of it as something you make matching a dress. So with the scraps of a beautiful summer dress, or not summer actually, all year round, you can match the accessory to your dress using the scraps, so there's less waste and all of that. But I've also seen people using just leftover fabrics, so mix and match, doing the bow in a different colour.
Really cute, really highlights the bow, doesn't it? And it's so good for like using up your remnants or any little bits you have lying around.
And if you make it in something like sparkly, someone's made a sparkly gold bow bag, which I adore, and gold to me is neutral, so that you can wear with anything.
Absolutely.
So nice and easy, and it's a very, very quick thing to make. No fitting involved. It gives you a little boost and a bow. What else do you want? And then moving on, so that one actually has bow in the title, like the Pussy Bow
no question.
Bow bag, it's that. The others we're going to talk about have optional bows.
Optional bows, subtle bows. If you're not like 100% bow, but maybe you just you want to experiment. Sometimes I feel like I don't know if I like something until I wear it. Until I try it out. I'm like, oh, I am a bow person.
Yeah.
So maybe these are gateway bows.
Gateway bows, I love that. The gateway bows patterns. I love it.
So the first one I think would be Audrey.
Yes.
So Audrey's a jersey top.
Yeah.
3/4 length, these sort of boat neck style.
Boat neck.
Yes, you can make it plain neckband, or you can do a neckband that has 2 little ties that you put in a little cute bow just off to the side.
There's 2 versions. So one is little ties, so it's just a little knot. So it does look like a bow, but it's a nod to it. Or there's bigger ties and you can make a proper bow. I've made that a couple of times and I really love it. It's just a t-shirt, but it has a little extra.
More, a little something.
And again, I've seen some versions where people have used a different coloured jersey for the neckband and bow, so it really stands out. So there's lots of fun to be had with that one. And at the end of the day, what you're wearing is a t-shirt, so it's so comfortable. So comfortable, so quick to make, and it will go with everything. So those are my kind of winner patterns. Yeah. And then, we can go back to the Emmeline skirt.
That's to Emmeline,
old, right?
Yeah. Emmeline is a pleated button down. It's got belt loops and a belt that comes around and it's tied. It's a proper shaped belt at the end, so it's got this kind of like crescent-y shape.
Ears.
That makes ears. Thank you. Yes.
I don't think that's the appropriate term, but it feels right.
Yeah.
She usually is a tiny
like
bow.
bunny rabbit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the image.
So yeah, you get a nice bow at the centre front.
Really pretty. And again, you could have a contrasting belt, so the bow really stands out, or you can go matching.
You could have
different ones.
I'm thinking like navy Emmeline, gold belt, gold bow bag.
Oh, now,
Audrey. How many bows can you?
How many bows can you fit in one outfit? Then
even further back in time.
Further back.
To the grace dress, which is another one that sort of has an optional bow because it comes in the form of a belt.
Yes.
Tie.
And it's detached.
It's detached, yes.
So you could have it without anything on the waist and it's a nice fit, not too tight, but it has a nice fit on its own. Or you could use the tie to
sort of cinch it
in and maybe leave the ends loose if you wanted, or you can make a very pretty bow. And we call it a party dress.
It is, yes. It's a classic party dress.
Exactly.
Very, very pretty. The bow just makes it prettier.
It's an extra little step of prettiness. Yeah. But yes, so we've got an offer on at the moment on those patterns that feature bows. We'd love to hear if you've added bows to other patterns.
Because I was just thinking that it's like even like a Betty with a little bow belt. Or anything.
Do you know what I've seen? There's a dress that Audrey Hepburn wears in Sabrina, a film called Sabrina, and she has what looks like a Betty dress a Betty dress on, and instead of the shoulders being sewn down, she has like longer ties, and they close with 2 little bows. And I thought, that's a hack I want to try. That sounds amazing.
Yes, that would be very, very cute.
Very, very cute. So I'd love to know. Let us know in the comments if you've added a bow, detachable or not.
Have you committed
to the bow? Because that's the beauty of it. Like, I think you don't have to always have the bow. So I made my Barbie dress. I mention all the time, any excuse, and I made it using the Miriam and Marilyn patterns from our Vintage Dreaming ebook, and to make it look like the Barbie dress, I had a big bow in the matching pink gingham fabric, and I just put a safety pin on it, and I've had it here, I've had it here, I've had it at the back. I move it all the time. Sometimes I remove it. I love a detachable bow.
That's a really good idea.
Because you're not committing, as you say. Yeah. And maybe sometimes you just want a plain kind of...
plain pink gingham dress.
Plain.
Subtle. Very
pink
subtle.
No, but if you made it, you made a lovely navy one.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you have a gold bow on it, sometimes you don't.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's how I feel like people often want to make dresses for formal occasions, but then they want to wear them again.
That's the perfect situation where you make a
detachable bow. Who knew? It's the way forward.
Good. I know. We love bows, but yes, we don't know if everyone does, but you don't have to commit. You can just give it a try and have a look at those patterns that we mentioned, because they are all very great and very wearable. They're not, a ball gown with a massive bow.
Everyday bows.
Everyday bows. But actually, that could take us into
move on
onto the fun part for us. I had a look at famous bow sort of features in a few moments of pop culture and stuff like that.
Nice, yeah.
I'm just going to mention a few, but there's the very famous Marilyn Monroe pink dress from Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, I believe. Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. You've all seen that scene. And she's wearing this gorgeous pink dress, and they put an enormous pink bow on the back. It's so beautiful. And then Madonna, for Material Girl, for the video for Material Girl, completely replicated that video.
Yes.
And she went, I'll have a pink dress with a big bow, thank you very much. And I just love that. That dress was so iconic that someone decades later went, I want to redo that.
Yeah, it's so fun. I don't know, I just thought of something you might remember better than me. Did you watch the Ryan Gosling at the Oscars doing the I'm Just Ken song?
Did I watch it?
Yeah, I
watched it 10 times.
Because I was reading up on that, and all the choreography of that is from that song. And I know he had a pink waistcoat.
He did.
But I can't remember if he was wearing a bow, and I would love that to be true.
We have to look it up.
But the whole choreography of that is the
thing
women,
going around and
which I thought was beautiful. Like, it just made my heart
I did not
happy.
know that.
Yeah.
I watched that like as it happened, and then rewatched the video about 10 times because I'm obsessed with the Barbie film. But I did not know that.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
That's so funny.
And such a good nod to a lot of heritage.
Absolutely. We have to go and look up if he was wearing any bows.
Because if they didn't, they missed a trick.
They missed a massive trick.
Yeah. Sorry, as you were, carry on.
No, absolutely. And then the other notable bow I want to mention is, because it was so different at the time, Elsa Schiaparelli, the designer, she at one point brought out lots of knitted dresses, very finely knitted, like machine knitted. And at one point she did one with an illusion bow pattern. So I'll put a picture in because it's hard to imagine. But so it's called trompe-l'œil, to be fancy, which means it tricks the eye. So it looks like a 3D bow, but it's knitted in just with different colours. It gives the illusion of a bow tied at the neck, which was
very cool.
very used style at the time.
Yeah.
But she just went, I'm going to flatten it and I'm going to knit it in. I'm sure someone else did the knitting and the planning of the machine to knit it. But she had the idea. And it looks so cool.
That's really interesting.
So cool. And it's something that I feel like it sometimes comes back. Like, there's that odd book that I had in the office the other day, which is Interesting Knitting Patterns by Hand. And it had a little bow tie. Again, fake 3D bow tie knitted in a different colour from the rest of the jumper. So it's a thing that's recurring, and Elsa Schiaparelli made it famous. So really, really cool.
That is cool, and that's definitely, there is no function there.
No
There is
function
nothing
at all.
useful about
But
those
it's a
bows.
nod
It's
to a style that is popular, but changing it up, which I love.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
So
I like
cool.
that.
And speaking of bow ties, maybe you have some bow tie moments.
I do have some bow tie facts. I don't know my facts as well as Alma do, so I have my notebook here. But so I was looking into things about bows being feminine or being perceived as feminine, which I think they
right now they are, I would say.
Or at least I assumed they were. But what I was looking into was men wearing bows. And so basically men got a little bit jealous quite early on of, back in the day, we're talking back in we talked about the French 16th, 17th century last time. I feel like if we do more of these videos, those guys are going to pop up a lot.
All the time, honestly.
Influential.
Very influential.
I know you've got some more facts around there as well.
Around the French.
But a lot of the ladies were wearing bows, and obviously it was very fashionable in the higher levels to be extravagant.
Yes.
To just have, no less is more.
No.
More is more. is much more. So a lot of these guys saw these ladies with bows on and were like, hang on a second. Also, I mean, I'm guessing as well, men didn't want to be outdone.
Well, definitely not.
Years, absolutely
well, and men's
not.
dress sense was so much more peacocky than it is. Well, no, now it's coming back, but then it has been in the recent decades.
Yeah, definitely. So men started, they were already wearing cravats, which, as I learnt, was more functional. Obviously it was an excuse to have a different fabric or something on there, but they actually didn't have a fastening at the top of their shirts, so cravats were always there to literally hold your
the shirt.
collar. Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's
and then they
cool.
thought, hang on a second, we can tart this up a bit.
We can make it prettier.
And they tied them into bow ties.
Oh,
and that's sort of where the bow ties came from.
That's so cool.
That they got to have a bow. They got to have that bit extra extravagance. But also, it was functional. It was doing a job for them.
And I guess because now you put a bow tie on top of a button-up shirt, but
there's
had you
no
not
need
had
for
the buttons, it would have actually kept the
It
collar
would've-
shut, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
very interesting. So functional and pretty.
That's functional and pretty. And I think we'll mention it again, but often it was a way to use a really expensive fabric, but in a small way.
Yes.
So it could be a status symbol.
Crazy expensive. Like if you think of what it is now, there's no comparison.
No.
It was next level.
Yeah.
So affording new fabrics wasn't, for everyone. But if you could save up, and buy a little bit, half a metre of fabric would make you a bow tie.
Oh my goodness, that's it, and it could elevate your whole look. So it definitely was a masculine thing.
Amazing.
I think maybe you see the difference of like a big bow like this versus a smart small bow, but also we're moving. Yeah, that's true. I feel like it's moving a lot more now in that a lot of men. We were talking about Harry Styles before.
Definitely seen him in pussy bow blouses, for sure. That's definitely a thing.
There is a thing about it coming back that bows aren't just feminine.
Yeah.
Bows can kind of blur that line, and if you're not fussed about that line being blurred, then you're very happy to wear a bow of a bigger style or a smaller style. It's not just... It's a weird thing, isn't it, that bow ties, I always thought of for very smart, maybe upper class like your doctors, or at a wedding, and it makes me put on that voice, a bow tie. Yeah. And actually it comes from more flamboyance and function and like more
that is
flowy
very
things
true. There's something about bow ties that maybe we see as quite square, to use
my goodness,
but,
square and stuffy.
Square. You see, but actually at the beginning it would have been a flare and something. That's very interesting, but I haven't made a bow tie for myself, but I think I would wear a bow tie with a shirt. I love it to match my bow bag again. Everything to do with matching. But again, from the scraps of something else you've made.
What did you wear with your pineapple suit?
See, I wore
the
gold pussy bow blouse like this one, so there was no room. But I did make Pat a matching tie, so I think I could wear my full suit with a white shirt and the tie. I would wear that. And we have a tie, not a bow tie yet, maybe, but we do have a tie pattern that's very, very cool to wear for women's wear as well. I like it. But anyway, so bow ties, feminine, masculine. How about, because you found out some very cool facts about the pussy bow blouse itself, which is at the core of Sew Over It.
It is.
At the core of like so many decades, I'd say, life itself. But
so the pussy bow blouse first appeared on the scene in the 30s, the 1930s. So in our history timelines, fairly recent, really. Actually. This particular style, and it was a pattern published by. I'm going to lean over and look at my notes. The St. Petersburg Times. Oh. So I think in those times you probably would get patterns published in like pattern magazines.
Like in the Guardian, you get
make
yourself a blouse. How cool is that?
Oh my god, Guardian people, get on there.
Have a look.
Oh, actually, get in touch with us.
Get in touch with us. We'll make the patterns.
And it was a blouse with a high tied neck, and they described it as a tie at the neck, and you tie it in a bow, similar to how you would put a little bow on a female kitten to denote its gender.
That's so cute. I mean, very gender conforming, but
Massively.
a bow on a cat is
I know, and we both
delightful thing.
immediately thought of the Aristocats,
Yes.
the little girl cat Marie and the Aristocats.
She has a
She has
very
a
fluffy bow on the neck.
Yeah. So
Okay, so that's where the name comes from. I've never known
No.
where the name came from.
no, not at all, and it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And they kind of, I don't think that pattern, went absolutely mad, but
No.
it was when the designers picked up on it in the 50s and 60s. That's when it gained a lot of traction, and obviously you'll see it in Mad Men.
All the time.
Joan and Peggy,
Yes.
love it, and it really became a workwear item
Staple.
and a bit of a power item for when women started to
Join
join
the
the
workforce.
workforce.
Absolutely. I was reminded of the film 9 to 5, which I
Yes.
absolutely love. And those offices are a sea of pussy bow blouses.
Yeah.
It was properly power dressing.
Really would. I suppose if you think, if maybe further, maybe more like the 50s, if you don't have a job, if your primary life is as a housewife,
Yeah.
your wardrobe is not going to be suited
For the
or
office.
Suited.
But
it's not going to be.
it's not what they're used to seeing at the
No.
office, I'm sure.
No, definitely not. And so you needed something, and I could imagine joining a workforce as a woman at that time would be quite intimidating.
Definitely.
Just probably very few women, huge amount of men, and it was something that gave them a little bit of something.
A bit of an armour, maybe.
Exactly. It links a little bit to men wearing shirts and ties.
Yes.
But obviously
But
people
in
didn't
a
dress
different
quite
way.
as masculine as someone obviously could wear a shirt and tie now. It wouldn't no one would blink an eye, but I think then they would have done.
Yes, they would have done.
So it's sort of like our version of
I love
the
that.
workwear.
Power dress workwear, I'll go to.
Yes.
And you could, probably have a suit, skirt and jacket, and a good one, and then change the pussy bow blouse that goes with it.
Exactly.
It's quite a great staple.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And obviously there's been so many people throughout history. There's a lot of politicians, female politicians.
Yes, we were talking about this.
Margaret Thatcher obviously is very prominent wearer of pussy bow blouses.
Definitely.
And I think she was competing a lot against men in her role, but all across whatever political side.
whatever political
Michelle
side.
Obama wore a lot of
Yes.
a lot of them as well. I think any woman in power has
think
worn a pussy bow blouse at some point.
there is something very, I will say it's very feminine because of the bow, but it's not showing too much skin, which I imagine if you're in that position is definitely not something you want to do.
Yeah.
So you don't just want to be in
It's
a
quite demure.
dress. It's quite demure. It's, I'd say, it can look as expensive as you want, depending on the fabric.
Yes. Yeah. Very much so.
So I can see the logic for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah,
And
makes
there
sense.
I did come across one example of this. Was in 2018 in Sweden. There was a lady called Sarah Danius who worked for the company or the group that award some of the Nobel Prizes.
Ooh.
So she is a big deal.
Big deal.
And she brought a case against that company that there had been some abuse, and she was standing up for her rights, and they dismissed her. And to support her, loads of women in Sweden, all for one day, all wore their pussy bow blouses. As
beautiful.
we're
with
listening,
her.
we're with her.
And she, I'm presuming, was
That was
famous
her
for wearing.
staple.
That was her staple. That is
It's
a
such a
horrendous
nice-
story, but a beautiful support. Wow.
And how it can become like a political thing
Yes,
as well.
it can. So we found this in a few cases actually. I found something, we're jumping across history willy-nilly, but
Come along for the
thematically it
ride.
makes sense.
Yeah.
I found a little bit of interesting use of bows in the French, in Nazi-occupied France, in the late 30s and 40s. So when the Nazis took over, Paris and surrounding areas, they put on lots of rules to basically stifle the locals in many horrendous ways, but also a lot to do with fashion, which is very interesting. It's something that basically they saw as a potentially dangerous thing in terms of like people trying to stand out and people rebelling against what the Nazi regime was trying to bring to France.
Yeah.
And I find that extremely interesting. That they thought, like, let's quash
any
this.
sort of difference.
Yes, difference.
They generally hate
They
it.
definitely hate it. But the fact that it extended to fashion, I did not know until recently. They do talk about it a little bit in the show The New Look, if anyone's been watching that. I'm not finished yet, but it is very, very good. And it is set in that time. And for example, at one point they tried to move the haute couture from France. So all the ateliers that did the finest fashion in Paris, the Nazis were trying to just bring them over to Berlin. Like, we can just transfer it. Like, no. So very, very interesting, that show. But apparently, there were rules about fabric rationing, against extravagance, against frivolity, and a lot, and this I thought was interesting, women, so Hitler wanted his women to be dressed a certain way, and the ideal was the German mother, childbearing woman. That was the thing that he wanted. So there was a lot of slimming, kind of slimline design that was going on in the 30s. That for him it was like making a woman look like a boy. He hated that. So there was a lot of that, and anything that was too sexy, basically, he was like, no, they need to look like pure milkmaids and ready to childbear. So a lot of rules in terms of clothing in general, but to begin with, the hats were untouched. So there were no rules on hats to begin with. He did get round to that as well, but to begin with, people could still buy hats without too many limitations. And what they started doing was decorating the hats really extravagantly, and with using scraps of fabric and ribbons. So they would make enormous, but I'm talking big, so you'd see like these French women in, I don't know, a brown or a grey suit, very, very straightforward and neat and strict, but then these enormous hats. I've got I did try to find some pictures, I'll put some in if I can, but colourful, big, bows were very, very prominent, and there was a lot of scrappiness about using what you could get your hands on, because fabric was expensive and scarce and forbidden. You couldn't buy too much fabric. But again, a bow is made of a little scrap of fabric, really, or a little bit of ribbon. It doesn't need much, but it adds personality, and it was a way of like showing like we're not completely we're not completely bowing to your will. And I love
we're
that
still
story.
here.
We're still
our
here.
Personalities
Our personality's here. French fashion is here. It's striving, and it's I just love it. You know, very amazing things were going on in the proper resistance, politically. But I just love that everyday women were doing this.
Yeah, that's it. The everyday resistance.
Yeah, the everyday resistance,
that was
without
lovely.
doing crazy. Taking messages secretly from one side or the other of the city, like without doing that, you could still go like, I'm joining in this. I love that story. And speaking of little bits of ribbons, for example, I did find something interesting that Louis XIV, who we talked about in our Women and Sewing in History, he was very much present. He kind of brought back the ribbon and consequently the bow, because ribbons are very usually tied into bows.
Yeah.
That's kind of like
just how
they
they're
go together.
done.
He brought them back into fashion at Versailles, at his court, and he probably did quite like how they looked, both on men and women's wear, on hair a lot, especially, on wigs, I should say, but yeah. And, but it was also a move because the French ribbon makers weren't making enough money. So he basically brought them back in fashion to revive the industry. That's
he was all about the. Well, I mean, obviously, he was in charge of fancy about the economy.
But it's interesting to think that he would go like, oh yeah, ribbons.
He was.
Let's do something about that.
The first influencer.
The first influencer, totally.
Right.
And
he would have gone strong
wife,
on TikTok.
Very strong on TikTok, and his wife and all his mistresses would have equally done that.
Amazing.
So I just thought that's very interesting that the rise of the bow came from trying to salvage the ribbon makers of France.
Yeah.
And the good thing about ribbons as well was that they were still luxurious because they were made of silk and tiny looms. It took a while, but they were affordable if you saved up to the lower classes, maybe the middle classes, realistically. But so you could have much plainer clothes compared to what the courts were wearing, but you could save up and buy a length of ribbon that you could decorate some part of yourself with, maybe the hair, maybe here like a choker, maybe a bow on a dress, and it was just very aspirational because a court, they were covered in ribbons and bows. They're like, but I can save up and get this one thing. And it's quite similar. It makes me think of like, you know, designer shops. I don't own anything designer, but often the entry point is the belt or the purse.
Yeah.
That's like your entry point into someone, I don't know, something Gucci or Armani or whatever. And it's kind of the same parallel, I would say. Like you can actually save up to buy something small. You can't save up to buy a gown from Versace. You just can't.
Sometimes you might have a really expensive, like a Liberty fabric.
Yes.
And sometimes, for me, the designs wouldn't wear them all over. But if I've got a little bit of Liberty, I might use it for a pocket.
Yeah.
Or like binding often.
Oh, yes.
So you just have that one little bit of something that you're like, oh.
It just
and for
feels
them, it
special.
might have been that little
felt
ribbon.
Similarly. Yeah.
For their Sunday best, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they're going to church, they want to wear something nicer than what they've been working in all week.
Yeah, totally.
And it's got something special on.
Something special. Lovely. It's like a touch of luxury and really interesting.
Yeah.
But going back to the rich and famous, in the next court, so after Louis XIV, we're on to Louis XV, and his very famous mistress called Madame de Pompadour, Marquise de Pompadour later, because she got a title for being such a good mistress, and she was definitely a favourite. She sounds incredible.
Yeah.
Like,
she's quite
everything I've read about her, I'm like, you were brilliant. Because she managed to, yes, she was fun, yes, she was, you know, popular and like beloved at court, but also she managed to sneak in some political things.
She was clever.
She was clever.
Yeah.
I read a quote, I cannot remember where I read it, I read a lot, but it was something like her beauty got her the king, her intelligence let her keep him.
Yes.
Which I really liked.
That's cool.
Really liked. And she was a bow legend. Like, I'm going to put some paintings below. That lady loved a bow. She put a bow on everything, on her hair, on her clothes, everything. Like, she clearly had a thing for bows. So it kind of, the fashion came in the previous court, and she just ran with it in every way she could. And one of my favourite things of her, which I don't think she invented it, but she really popularised it. There's a part of the court dress that's called a stomacher. I hadn't heard of it before, but it's like a removable panel that goes in here. Basically, you have a dress, sort of open dress on top.
Oh yeah.
And then a chemise underneath, lots of layers of, you know, undergarments. And the stomacher was detachable, so not linked to one specific dress. Detachable, and it covered your undergarments at the front, basically. So it's sort of part of a corset.
Yeah.
But not that structural. It's
And I
like a little
suppose that
cover.
be like it just makes so much practical sense. For that's likely to be the bit that you maybe drop food down.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
can chain
To
it
clean
like,
it. Yeah, I
and they wouldn't
suppose.
have been washing their dresses very
No,
often.
definitely not.
They could interchange them.
I think initially that is the practical
Yeah.
idea for the stomacher, but of course they turned
Put
it
a
into a
bow on
frivolous
it.
thing. So there was a lot of gorgeous, expensive embroidery done on these. Then there were jewels stuck on it, and for Madame de Pompadour, it was bows.
Yes.
And so this one specific design that she wore a lot was a stomacher in plain, well, I say plain, probably silk, but you know, something cream or something, and then bows in decreasing size. So bigger at the top, then smaller, 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 and
That's
it gave this
amazing.
incredible triangular shape that made your waist look tiny together with all the corseting and stuff. But it was so
Just
Bowlicious.
luxurious.
Luxurious.
That's amazing.
And if you think every ribbon is expensive, it
Yes,
really gives
that
you
is
an idea
pure
of how
extravagance.
extravagant
Yeah.
the whole thing is. I love her looks. And even so, she managed to stay at court throughout her life. She died, I think, in her 40s, but you know, that's pretty old in terms of the time.
Yes. Yeah.
And she was basically an old lady by the end. Ridiculous. But what I loved is that she tamed her dress sense a little bit, but not too much. She still wore bows. She covered up a little bit more her sleeves, for example, and things like that. And crucially, she started wearing a bonnet with a bow under her chin to cover her double chin. Which is, I mean,
Oh,
it
the
sounds so
vanity.
silly. The vanity is mad, but I just love that she went, well, I wear bows everywhere else.
Well,
Why
do
not?
that.
Like, no one will know. And so a bow lover through and through. She
is.
epitomizes Bow-nanza.
She does. She'd be a fan of Bonanza.
She
I think.
would be a fan
Yeah.
of Bow-nanza. So yeah, that's my main character that I found
That's-
when researching bows. I loved it so much. Is there anything else you can think of? I'm sure I read more things, but
I did. I think a lot of things have flown out of my head right now.
Yeah.
But what I was thinking about mostly is that how nice it is that something, or that I have learned definitely, that something I've always assumed is just like a pretty thing.
yes.
Has so much like power and strength behind it, and a lot. Obviously, we talked about bow ties and we talked about men wearing bows, but it does still have a lot of feminine energy, but not in a soft way, in a really
No, that's
strong
true.
way. And I really like that. Like, because I'm not one for a lot of.
No.
I quite like quite simple things, and maybe I'm gonna get some more bows in my wardrobe. I've not got
You need
enough
more,
bows.
yeah. Very, very true. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. It's like strong femininity.
Yeah,
I like that.
you're right.
Yes. So we hope you found this interesting. Let us know below if you stayed with us through the facts, the bow facts.
Bow facts.
And hopefully you'll sew something up with a bow
Yeah.
soon. We'd love to see that. Have a look at the offer details below and let us know about your bow adventures.
Yes, bow
what have you added
adventures.
bows to?
Any bow facts, please. We
Yes,
love
bow
them.
facts that you found. And as always, we are absolutely not experts. We are
Yeah.
just enthusiasts. We like to find out interesting facts that will hopefully spark up
Yeah.
some interest on your side. And yeah, hopefully we can do a few more of these. We really enjoy them.
I know, yeah.
So there will be more. And we will see you. Oh, we haven't actually mentioned the fact that our next pattern, which is not too far away, may have a little something for bow lovers.
That's true. If there's a Bonanza 2025,
No,
this pattern will be in it.
will be in it for sure. So we'll leave you with that. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe to our channel. And we will see you very, very soon.
Bye.
Bye.